如果你在聆听时不需要频繁暂停，就能理解大意，那么你的英语积累在日常表达中是完全够用的。我们开始吧。
Pull out all the stops. People say it today like it's nothing, but the truth is this phrase was born on a night when sound itself felt dangerous. It began in a small town with a church built from dark stones that held the cold even in summer. On that late afternoon, the sky looked bruised. A storm was walking toward the town, slow but heavy, like it had something to say. Inside the church, Henry wiped dust from the steps leading up to the organ loft. He was 14, thin, careful with his hands. He thought the organ was the closest thing the town had to magic. The pipes reached for the ceiling like silver trees. When they spoke, the whole building seemed to breathe. Henry wasn't supposed to be up there alone, but the storm made him restless. Every few minutes, thunder rolled across the hills and shook the glass. The candles flickered, throwing long shadows that slid across the pews. The heavy doors creaked open. Mr. Collins entered with his coat dripping and his hair plastered to his head. He looked older than usual, as if the storm had pulled years out of him on the way in. "You're early," Henry said. "Not early enough," Collins muttered. "The mayor wants everyone here tonight. Says we need music strong enough to lift spirits." Henry nodded, though the idea of hundreds of people crammed inside made him nervous. The church felt small even when empty. When full, the air got tight. Together they climbed to the loft. The storm pushed against the walls like a giant leaning on the building. The wooden rail shook under Henry's hand. "Mr. Collins lit the lamp beside the organ. Its glow spread slowly across the keys and the rows of wooden stops. Some were smooth from years of use. Others were stiff, rarely touched because their voices were too loud, too wild, too hard to control. "Ever wonder what would happen if we opened all of them?" Henry asked. Collins looked at him, surprised. "Most players never try," he said. "You only do it when the moment demands everything." He ran his fingers across the keys, not pressing yet, just feeling the cold surface. The air felt tight, charged, as if the storm was listening through the windows. Below them, the first people entered the church. Wet coats. Heavy boots. Quiet voices. No one wanted to be outside. A sharp crack of thunder made the rafters groan. A woman yelped. Someone dropped a lantern, and for a breath the whole room went dark. Henry felt his heartbeat in his throat. Then the lamp on the organ steadied. Its small circle of light felt like the only warm thing in the world. "Mr. Collins took a long breath. "If there was ever a night to give them everything," he said, "this might be it." He pulled the first stop. The faint hum filled the air like the start of a story. But the storm answered with a roar that rattled the pews. Henry swallowed. Something told him that tonight, the storm wasn't the only thing that would shake the town. The benches filled fast. People came in shaking the rain from their sleeves, crowding toward the front as if staying close together could keep the storm out. Every few minutes, lightning flashed through the stained glass windows, turning the colors into quick bursts of fire. Henry watched from the loft. The weight of the moment pressed on him. He could feel the storm building, but something else too, an expectation rising from the people below. They needed the music to hold them steady. They needed it to remind them that the night could still be survived. Mr. Collins adjusted his seat. His hands hovered over the keys, but he didn't play. Not yet. He kept looking at the stops as if choosing which voices deserved to wake. "You think they're ready?" Henry whispered. "No," Collins said. "But they need it anyway." He pulled another stop. A deeper voice joined the hum, and the entire loft vibrated. Henry felt it through the floorboards. It was the kind of sound that curled into your bones before you even noticed it. Down below, the crowd grew quiet. It was the silence of people preparing themselves. Then Collins began to play. The first chord rolled out warm and low, steady as a heartbeat. Another followed, climbing higher, each note reaching a little farther into the room. The storm pounded the roof in reply, but the music didn't shrink. It rose. Slow but certain, like someone standing up in the dark. A child in the crowd leaned forward. A man closed his eyes. An older woman put a hand to her chest. Henry leaned over the railing, grinning despite himself. He loved when the music felt like it wrapped around people. It made the whole town feel small enough to hold. But the storm struck again, hard. A crack split the air so loud the church floor jumped. The lamps flickered. One blew out completely, and a corner of the room fell into shadow. Collins didn't stop playing. But Henry saw something change in him. The storm was winning. The notes grew thinner. The wind roared against the windows. The church trembled harder than before. Someone in the back cried out. And a few people stood, ready to leave even though there was nowhere safer to go. Collins pulled another stop. And another. His movements were urgent now. The sound thickened again, but the storm answered with a blast that made the entire loft shudder. A hymn book fell from a shelf and thudded to the floor. "Is it enough?" Henry asked. Collins didn't answer. The thunder outside rolled like a giant dragging iron chains across the sky. Rain hammered the roof so hard the shingles rattled. The walls moaned. Henry felt the building tremble under his feet and wondered if the night would swallow them whole. Then Collins turned to him. There was something fierce in his eyes, not fear, but the thin line right before someone refuses to break. "Henry," he said. "Hold on to the rail." Henry grabbed it. Collins reached out both hands. And for the first time in Henry's life, he saw a man pull out every stop. All of them. The organ roared awake in full force. The pipes shook. The loft shook. Henry felt the air itself thicken, like sound had weight and it pressed against his chest. Dust rained from the rafters. The lowest notes boomed like the earth opening. The highest climbed like light breaking through clouds. People gasped. Some stood. Others dropped to their knees. The church wasn't a quiet stone building anymore. It was a storm of its own. And this storm fought back. The sound thundered through the church until it felt bigger than the storm outside. The walls shook, but now it wasn't fear that made them tremble, it was power. The music rose so strong that even the lightning seemed to pause, as if listening. Henry held the rail with both hands. His arms shook, but he couldn't look away. The pipes blazed with sound, each one spilling a different voice into the air. Together they formed something that didn't feel like music anymore. It felt like courage made into sound. Below, faces lifted. People leaned toward the organ as though the notes could shield them. The girl with wet braids wiped her face. The man who had been ready to leave now stood tall, his hands clenched at his sides. Even the older woman seemed steadier, her breath moving with the rhythm instead of against it. Collins played faster. Not wild, just full. Every key he struck seemed to crack open a bit more space inside the room. The storm slammed the roof again, but the organ only grew louder, climbing higher, reaching deeper, refusing to bow. Then something shifted. A sudden gust hit the church so hard the windows rattled like teeth. The lights flickered again. One of the smaller pipes squealed, pushed past its limit. Henry felt a jolt of fear. This wasn't just powerful, it was dangerous. The organ wasn't built for this kind of force. "Mr. Collins," Henry shouted. But Collins didn't look away from the keys. His shoulders were tense. Sweat ran down his temple. He was playing like a man carrying the whole town on his back. Another roar of thunder hit so close the floor trembled. Dust poured from the rafters in sheets. The air smelled like rain and old stone and something sharp, like metal being pushed too far. Henry leaned close. "We have to stop." "No," Collins said softly. "We finish this." He struck another chord, and the pipes answered with a blast so bright Henry felt it behind his eyes. It echoed through the church like a shout meant for the sky. The storm faltered. The wind dipped. The rain's rhythm softened, just barely. Collins kept playing. The final climb of the piece rose like a long-held breath finally let go. The sound filled every corner of the church, every crack in the walls, every shaking beam overhead. Then, slowly, the storm stepped back. Not gone. Just changed. The thunder rolled farther away. The rain lost its weight. A strange quiet settled across the room, the kind that comes only after something has been fought and lived through. Collins lifted his hands from the keys. The final note hung in the air, trembling like a promise. Henry let go of the rail. His palms were damp. His legs felt weak. But he smiled, wide, breathless, surprised by everything he had just witnessed. The crowd didn't clap at first. They simply sat there, stunned, as if afraid that applause might break the moment. Then the first pair of hands came together. Then another. Soon the whole church was filled with the sound of people thanking him the only way they could. Collins leaned back, exhausted. "You heard it," he said. Henry nodded. "All of it." The organ quieted, but the echo of the night stayed alive in the rafters. Something had changed in Henry. He felt taller, somehow. Braver. Like he had seen how much sound a person could make when they refused to hold anything back. Later, when the crowd left and the storm was just a memory drifting over the hills, Henry stood beside the pipes. He ran his hand over the wooden stops, still warm from use. He understood then what the phrase really meant. Pull out all the stops. Not to be loud. Not to impress. But because sometimes the world storms so hard around you that the only way to stand is to give everything you have. And maybe one day, when your own night feels just as dark, you'll remember this story. The old church. The shaking pipes. The man who refused to back down. And you'll know that when the moment comes, you can pull out all the stops too.
作为一个母语非英语的人，能把故事听完，你的进步太大了。感谢你收看这个节目。如果你觉得这个节目对你有帮助，请给我一个点赞，或者留下评论，这对我很重要。我们下个视频见。